He goes, what are you thinking about? And I go, that movie we watched the other day with Jimmy Stewart, a ball player who lost his leg? Because, yeah, and I go, what if that's your favorite player growing up and his leg goes up for auction and you buy it? And they proceed to beat me for an hour and a half of how stupid I am. I said, don't worry about it. A month later, the leg in real life goes up for sale.
This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome, people. Welcome to the third episode of Coop's Comedy Corner. And when I was thinking of guests to get on the show, because I want to direct a show on people who have good stories, who've done stand-up for a while, who've had also gone into writing or acting. And when I thought about stories, I thought about my guest today, because it was 11 years ago, he did my show, Cooper Talk. And I recorded in the studio in Burbank, and Allan came down and I had a great time because he has so many stories, because he was one of Kinnison's original Outlaws. He's been a regular at the comedy store and the Laugh Factory forever. He's played all around the world, huge venues. And my guest is Allan and Stephan. How you doing, Allan?
Pretty good. How you been?
Good. I got to tell you, I followed you on Facebook, and I saw that you did a show in Vegas a few weeks ago, and Sabrina Sori was the host. Now, you know her from back in the Kinnison days, right?
I was married to her.
Okay.
For about 15, 16 years. She's still my best friend, and she always wanted to do it. She's started to get really good at it. So Wise Guys, it's called. They're out of Utah, but they have a few here now. And, they usually bring in people that can sell it out for 2 nights that have been on Kill Tony. That's all you need today. The 4,000 credits mean nothing. And when they called, I said, can I bring my own people? Because some of the locals here, there's no system to show them what's right or wrong. And she said, yeah. I said, I'm going to bring my ex-wife and Stephen Pearl. And she goes, well, I've seen Pearl do like 2 minutes. I go, no, Pearl's out of his mind. You haven't seen anything. And it was a great show. And I think they also like a little bit of the interaction I do with her. I play with the audience, and somebody said something about wanting to be out of her marriage. And I go, I'm sure there's somebody in the room here that can relate to that. And we'd go back and forth sometimes, and they really liked it. So it was fun.
So I remember you told me when you're from the same area I grew up, and I remember you telling me a story. Tell me a story how you got into stand-up, because I think if I remember, there wasn't any comedy clubs. You like going to like Francine's or some mafia places, or how did you get into comedy? What was your path to comedy?
The very first time was a mistake. It was at a Steak and Ale, and I was in charge of the lounge. And people come in from South Philly, and I get up there and go, hey, nice white shoes, And then they came to me and said, do you want to do New Year's, which is about 200 people? I said, sure, and panicked. Took a joke from everybody, ate a sandwich, stupid shit. And the guy I grew up with was with me, and my parents were in the crowd. And afterwards, I went outside and threw up and said, I'll never do that again. And when I got home, my father, I said, why were you the only one laughing? He said, you had no clue what was going on? They hated your guts. It was hysterical. And then, I was an actor, a kid actor and stuff. So I said, I'm going to go to California and do the acting. I'm here a little while, and I'm at a party somewhere on a rooftop. And the guy from Car 54, I forget his name. I went to shake his hand, and he was peeing off the side. So I met there a guy named Mitchell Walters and a guy named Bob Lord. And I hung with them, and they had just started working at this place called the Comedy Store, which the original room was half its size. The main room was a Mexican disco, and upstairs hadn't been used since 1960. And she had no office. Her desk was at Mitzi Shore's desk was at the bottom of the stairs with cigarettes and candy in a jar. And I hung with these guys, and they said, damn, you ought to try out. And I can't tell you how bad I was and how long, but they needed comics. So this is early 76, late 75. So she takes me right away. And, after about 6 months, she says, you're terrible. She didn't mix her words. She said, I want you to just MC, be the only MC. There was 4 of them. Just be the only MC every night and don't tell a damn joke. And that's how it started.
It's funny you said that there was not hardly any comics. It's so funny to hear that, because even like when I started out in Philly, the open mic, this was in '88, we only had like 25 comics in an open mic, and now
no clubs when I start. It's the Improv, the Comedy Store, a place called The Horn in Santa Monica that had singers and everything, and that was it. And then a guy named Mike Cayley opened one in Newport Beach, and that was it. And, Bud didn't like you, didn't go on. Bitsy didn't like you, didn't go on. Everybody had to like you because everybody knew each other.
Now, when did you start feeling that you were confident in your act? You said they were just putting up the emceeing. And the funny thing is, emceeing is a hard, I mean, you have to have chops. You got to talk to the crowd. That's the thing. I was talking to Steve Scrovan last week, how in New York it used to be the MC got paid the most, because that's the whole, if your MC sucks, your show's going to suck. And unfortunately,
what I did
but how did you develop?
One night, Letterman, Leno, and one other star were heckling me, like, one at a time. And I pretended I was being punched in a boxing ring. And then I stood up and gave it right back to them. And from that moment on, I went, all right, they're nothing. But what really did it is I'm emceeing one night, and I knew I was quick. And you got to remember, it's a different time. And Mitzi came in and said, mention all the stars that are here in Westwood. This is when she opened the Westwood store. And I went up and I said, wow, ladies and gentlemen, look who's here. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, Kotter. The 3 people from Shirley Hempel show, rerun, and I couldn't remember them. Shirley Hempel. Yeah. And then I go on our own Jimmy Walker, and the place goes nuts, and Jimmy's leaning against the back door on the bar, and I use the N-word. I said, who the hell let in all the... And the place lost it. Jimmy fell on the door and out the door. He couldn't stop laughing. It was a different time. And when I sat down, she goes, I think I might have created a monster. And then she sent me to La Jolla, and Paulie lived with me. This might be right after the strike. 79.
Well, so were you involved? Well, tell me about the strike. What was going on?
Well, my version's going to be different. I actually have the final contract here somewhere in one of these boxes. And technically, comedians are independently workers. So we're not salaried workers. So they wanted to establish a pay. There wasn't, nobody got paid. But Mitzi, if she liked you, you worked. And she would do things like, I need lights put in on my house. It's a mansion. What do I know? I put in lights. And a month later, for $500. A month later, she poked me in the booth. And I said, that hurt. She goes, I had a real electrician. He doesn't know how my house is standing. And I said, well, you get what you pay for. But the strike started. What happens is, I think it's Argus gets the idea. Wow, let me start over. She buys the building and throws out the Mexican disco run by Art LeBeau. Only, even though she owns the building now, Art LeBeau has a lease. So he throws her out. And that's when Westwood takes off. And he's the funny farm and nobody will work there. And 8 months later, she's back in and started to enlarge upstairs. And it was a few years before she enlarged the original room. And Argus said, you have that main room. Why don't we fix it up and put acts in there like Buddy Hackett? And not realizing the Vegas acts are going, we make hundreds of thousands of dollars 4 hours from here. Why would we work your club? So they gave it a try with Jackie Mason, Tiny Tim. And then Argus said, why don't you use your headliners here? And at this point, you're 3 or 4 years, 5, 6 years in. And she had 17 headliners is what we counted. And they went and wanted to be paid, and she said no. So they got what I call the little people, which is another 500, and said, we're going to make it so we all get paid and have insurance. Just listen to us. And I remember there's one meeting at the Hyatt House, and Gallagher went, let's get the cunt. And I went, well, if it's not everybody, I'm out of here. And I walked downstairs into Mitzi's office and said, they're coming for you. What can I do? I was the very first one. Argus, you can imagine, was the second. I think there was Binder. There's about 7, 8 of us. I'm the only one with a SAG card out of all the hundreds. So the strike is ugly. The signs are not creative. No yucks, no bucks. Are you kidding me? And, Paulie Shore's peeing on them from the roof. He's only like 8. Leno got hit by a car, but, it was nothing. And then a kid named Steve Lebekin, who was struggling in life anyway, was out front picketing, and she looked at him and said, well, he's in La Jolla tonight. If he's going to picket me, he's not going to work. And then he joined the picket line in their side, and somewhere along the line, he got it in his head he would never be able to work again because of Mitzi Shore controlled show business. And he went over to the Hyatt House and jumped. Didn't make it to the Comedy Store, smashed himself into the ramp. And sadly, the other side made a dummy, broke into the office of Mitzi and said, you killed him. And right around there, things started to change because they also aligned themselves with a union that was dead named AGFA, which was circus clowns. And they said they were going to pull SAG cards because all unions, when you're a union, if you say we're going to strike, they all have to agree. So I went, and the vice president at the time of Screen Actors Guild closed the door and proceeded to scream at me for 10 minutes. We don't give a shit about you comics. Agfa, you mother, we're trying to kill her. I said, calm down. Are you going to pull cards? I don't think we can legally do that. Thank you. Went back, crossed the line, went in and said, they're not pulling any cards. And we kept going. And then, it came time to settle. And the leader was Dreesen. And I can't I want to say there was a girl. I don't want to mention her name. I can't think of it. But basically, at one point, Dreesen said, if you don't agree with us, you're out. And I said, well, I think that's how they got the Jews on the train. That's not a good thing. And he threw me out. Then Marty Cohen said something and got thrown out. Then Biff, who's not a Jew, said something and got thrown out. And that's the way it was. And they were going to decide who's funny. And now I had a problem with making yourself president and deciding who the funny people are, because Dreesen was never going to get me or 50 others. And it was just not fair. So we broke their backs, and she never wanted to settle, but finally did. 25 during the week. Split the main room on the weekends with her, 50-50. And Bud said, oh, you can use my place whenever you want for the meetings, and I'll do whatever she does. He paid $17.50 and took out taxes, which, of course, comics have no balls. They could have sued him because we're independent contractors. If you take out, that means they could get insurance, or if they fall down there, they could sue. When you're independent, you don't have any of that. They started out with great intentions, and then I think it became ego. And I think the time was wrong. But the mistake is nobody should tell anybody who's funny and what you're worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you go through that. Now, how are you concentrating on your act and trying to develop when there's so much turmoil going on?
We all suck. We suck. But there's nothing else. So the 7 of us, learned. That's what I was getting to. When the clubs opened, which was like a year later, the Comedy Works in Denver was in a jazz club across the street upstairs called Basins Up. And it's my first headlining gig. I go right to headlining. I jumped. When I'm living with Paulie Shore in La Jolla, I'm the only comic that ever worked there like 6 months steady. And I was the middle. And the headliners would call her up, George Miller, God bless him, people like that, and go, I don't want to follow him. And I became a headliner down there, and so big they'd wait in line, bring me gifts. KGB, the radio show, made me a DJ whenever they went on vacation, and it just hit. So now I'm feeling pretty good. I hit my stride. I know what I do. I go to Denver, place is packed. I get off stage. I'm in the dressing room, and there's powder there. So I throw it in my face like I'm insane. And they come in, and I go, "What?" And they go, "They're going to love you next show." I go, "How many people are there?" "What do you mean?" They go, "How many tickets did you sell for that show?" "Oh, we don't turn the audience over." I go, "Dude, I got one fucking joke." And they laugh thinking, that's a joke. And then I went on stage and did an hour and 20 minutes and went, okay, I get what I do. I do material and I talk. And everybody said I had no act. It was very difficult for me, even the TV shows. How do we know when you're done? Even though I did a bunch of them, it was not easy. And now everybody does it. They're known for it. This kid Riff, I don't know what his name is. He's too cute to get to prison and be bad news. And there's a bunch of them. And that's how they build themselves now. But what they do is they chat, and if they hit on something, fine. What I've always done, if I work it for an hour, I remember something about everyone I talk to, a name, a job, something. And at the end of the night, I'd run it all together into one. And nobody does that. And that's how I got started in clubs. I didn't look back. I went right to headlining, and it was new. So because I could do time, I'd say to them, what do you make a week? And they'd lie, and I'd tip the bartender, and he'd tell me. So let's say it was 14,000 in liquor. I said, I'm going to do an hour, and then announce kamikazes are $1 a shot, and do another hour. I said, they'll be so drunk. And his bar went up to 18,000. So when I went in, what'd your bar do? He goes, 18,000. I go, well, we're partners after 14. I don't have to. And Louis Anderson was the only other guy that could do that. And I had a soft spot for that place because when they moved across the street, I just liked them. It was the first place I had gone. But one night I found a lady on stage there that is my dear friend. And her closing joke was, a lot of people say I'm not feminine. Well, they can suck my dick. And I went over and I said, put her on the show with me this week, because I'd go in early. And they go, she's a pain in the ass. We don't think women are funny. They go, you don't even know how to run your club. Are you kidding me? And that was Roseanne. So that's how I started headlining and doing it.
So you're headlining and you're working with Roseanne, and you're working the bigger circuit. Now, at what point do you meet Sam? Because you were with Sam for like 6 years, and you were in like the heyday, like the insane Sam time.
Sam first shows up in 1980. I headlined in 1980. Sam is married with a stepkid and an entourage. He always has that, which was Carl, his brother. And at some point, she's unhappy. They go back to Texas. Done. 2 years later, he comes back with Carl and the entourage. And he worked at Westwood. And Paulie would feed him. He had the little kitchen there, and they'd sleep on the stage. And he would walk people. She didn't like him. And Carl never got on stage. I didn't even know he was a comic. And after, I don't know, might have been a year, maybe two, she put him on at midnights, and he started to build a crowd. The same people that walked out were now paying. And then Rodney took a liking to him, put him on the Rodney special, and boom. Same thing with Dice. In those days, you could do shows and be famous the next day. Not today.
I know.
Carson in the old days, your whole life changed.
Well, you think about the Tonight Show. Back in the day, it's like, if you did the Tonight Show back when Carson hosted, if you got couch the first time, you're signed by William Morris.
Gave you a thumbs up. If you got the couch, the next day you were a millionaire or close to it, because you were opening for somebody, and your money goes up. Here's a story. We went to Graceland, and you could record a song without Elvis, one of his songs. So Sam did Are You Lonesome Tonight? And we play it back, and every tourist is running because you can imagine what the language was. Months later, somehow Carson got a bootleg copy of this. He said, well, why hasn't he been on? And if you know anything about the way they booked the Tonight Show, anybody that they think is going to be dangerous or Carson's not going to like, they won't even look at. So that's why Sam didn't get it. So he did Letterman first. So I go to his house that night. And we're all rock and rolling pretty good in those days. And he says, yeah, I did Carson today. You know, I went down and rehearsed. I go, what do you mean you rehearsed? Well, I showed him my set. I go, why would you do a set if he heard the song? Why don't you sing? What? And before you know it, with the liquor and everything else going on, I was at a tuxedo store at 9 a.m. getting these stupid tuxedos. And we were going to be the backup group, the young Jordanaires. The Jordanaires backed up Elvis. And we have 4 real singers and a guitar player. And we ask nobody. You know how we operated. And we show up. The director can't stop laughing. Now we're backstage. And we haven't asked, you know, there's like 6, 7 more people need to be paid. And the guy who books it comes back and says, you're not doing this. And Sam, without missing a beat, goes, march down the hallway. Tell your boss the Outlaws are going home. Letterman broke me. And fuck your show. In the meantime, Carl and I go into makeup. And we're told in those days Carson isn't friendly. It was 89. Well, Carson's getting his makeup on. And he turns to me, he goes, are you related to the Jordanaires? I go, well, that's our Carl and I's father. What? You know, I had them on originally. Who's your dad? Whatever name he'd say, well, that's my dad. You know, fuck him. And we don't say anything. We go back to the dressing room. Now, nobody said anything. The guy's too afraid to go to Carson. So we line up, and for some reason, in front of the flat curtain, they had put a semi-round. And there's a crack where you can see Carson and he can see. And he sees Sam go in there. Then he sees the other guys, and he looks up and he sees real singers going into the soundproof booth. And he starts pounding the desk, laughing. We haven't even started. He whispers to McCann, and he starts laughing. Ed McMahon. The curtain opens, the place loses it. He does it. He didn't curse. You know, he came close, but he, you know, all you needed is the scream and the threat. He sang it brilliantly. And we were on 6 more times that month. And I still get checks from it. It was on his anniversary show. He asked us that night. And when it was done, we couldn't get rid of him. He was backstage and nobody's done this to me since Rickles used to throw me around. This is great. Nobody does this. And Sam says, because the people that book it are afraid of you. And we had a legendary time with it.
So tell me what it was like. Okay, so you're with Kinnison. You guys got the Outlaws. It was Mitchell Waters, Carl LeBove.
Sam and I aren't talking. He doesn't really know Mitchell, but he gets hot. He does his HBO special and gets hot. And he goes out with Carl. And he used to have a thing, the Texas Outlaws. So I started hanging with him again, and he called me. He said, we want to do the Outlaws. It'll be you, Carl, and I. And for a while, we would take a 4th one, mostly Lenny Clark. But Kravitz did it. Belzer did it. Paulie did it. But they were all temporary, 1 or 2 times. And then I talked them into Mitchell Walters, and that became the Outlaws of Comedy that was doing arenas and stadiums.
So what is that like as a comic when you go from playing clubs and, you know, your club's intimate, and for you, you talk to the crowd. That's your talent. That's what you do. Intimacy is better for you. I mean, now what happens when you go now, Kinnison's blowing up, and now you're playing Madison Square Garden.
One, you have to talk slower.
But how do you deal with the crowd? Because the crowd.
Well, I wasn't allowed to. If I dealt with the crowd, Sam couldn't follow it, and he hated it. So I just did material. However, I did a little crowd in the beginning, because when I come out, they don't want me. In Vegas, it was different. In Vegas, they had us down as the new Rat Pack. But on the road, they want Sam. And I would come out, and they'd scream and scream. And there's 2 more after me, you stupid fox. You know, and they'd laugh at Sam's crowd. I go, as soon as you shut the fuck up, I'll start. And I go to start, and one guy somewhere in the rafters yells. And I go, seat R, row 9, I'm going to fuck you up. And they laughed, and I was off and running. I jump into my material, and it wasn't a long show in the beginning. We'd all do about 15, 20 tops, and then Sam. And then we played places so much we break it up. Three of us, a break, and Sam. Then it went three of us, a break, Sam, and the piano, and all of us. And then eventually we formed a band, which we did when we were nobodies. And that song blew up. And we were like rock stars. Every rocker would come to perform with us, be on stage. People, Ozzy, not Ozzy, Jeffrey Osborne and Billy Idol. When are they going to be in the same room? And it was just a different time, and very magical and very good until Sam lost his mind.
Well, tell me about Vegas. Didn't you have a whole floor in Vegas for a while? I mean, that was like you said, the Rat Pack. Tell me how that came about, because
Mitzi books us there, but we got to take Paulie, who's terrible. In fact, I'll tell you a great story. He's so bad. I'm in the hallway of the dressing room, and half in and half out, and I see her storming towards it. And I hear Paulie go, "I wonder what my mom's going to think." And I go, I don't think your mom's here. I think you're about to meet the cunt that owns this place. She flew in there. "You untalented, unfunny, foul-mouthed little piece of shit. Allan and Mitchell, if you can't get him funny in the next hour, he's off the show." And she storms out. And I go, "Wonder where your mom is." But, it was rough. But what happened is the critics start to like us. It's a fun show. I mean, we respect Vegas. People still dressed up. We're in tuxes. We're doing the nines. And the first few times it's for Mitzi. Eventually we outgrow it. But what does that is we go for 2 weeks. And I used to go there as a kid. And they had 2 a.m. shows the celebrities would do for each other or the help that couldn't come see them. So Sam said, "Let's do that." And our show wouldn't go off till 3:30. And every celebrity on the Strip was there. Joan Fricke, the Country People, Charlie Pride, Joan Rivers, Paul Anka, every big star. And in fact, Charlie Pride goes, "How are you getting away with this?" We broke the language barrier. They threw Pryor and Carlin out years earlier. We broke the language barrier. Well, those shows set a record and beat Sinatra's record in Vegas for attending. And we did like 32 shows in 2 weeks, something crazy. And wherever we went, we were on every magazine. You couldn't walk outside. I went to a mall, and you would think I was a Beatle. It was ridiculous. And I came back with like 20 shirts and boxes. And Sam goes, "What's that?" I go, "They just gave them to me." He goes, "I'm the star of the show. Where are my shirts?"
What was the partying like, though? I mean, it was. I mean, it just says legendary. How did you guys keep your shit together? I mean, it's a matter of I know you only work when you're doing stand-up. You only work so many minutes, thing. But you can't party all the time. Your body. I mean, when I was in a room,
eventually Sam's sleeping on stage. I used to have to poke him with a broom.
So give me a good party story. Tell me about a good Vegas insane story.
Well, you mentioned the top of the floor. That's when they gave us every room connects on the top of the dunes. And it was everybody you could think of, very decadent. And the shows were insane. And I remember I'm sitting on the couch next to this little girl, her knees was scarred. And I said, "How come you're not in the line to fuck Billy or one of the celebrities?" "Oh, I have a boyfriend." And 6 months later, we're playing there, and she comes backstage. She goes, "You probably don't remember me." And I look at the knee. I go, "Where's your boyfriend?" And then she lived with me for 6 months. But oh God. One time in the Hyatt House, we're partying and the cops show up, the sheriffs. Everybody panics. They go in the bathroom and they leave. They go, "What's that?" And they go, "That's where the blow comes from." Different time. I can tell you funny stories like the first arena we're playing, we're each in a limo, and I suggest everybody does their drugs, whatever it is. And as the limo pulls up at LAX, a guy leans into me and says, "Step out." And I do, and I go, "Let me get out of your way." He goes, "Oh, no. You're part of what's going to happen here." I went, "What?" And he slowly lines us all up with our luggage and says they've been told we move kilos of cocaine. and I have a bag of pot stuck in my pants, but it's over my belly. It's heavy then. They go down the suitcases, open one, and there's Sam's bag of pot. And Sam goes, "They're my brothers." His brother weighs about 90 pounds. And they hold up the pants. He goes, "Why is your laundry in it?" "Oh, he's getting it clean for me." So his brother had to actually go to a drug program after this. Then they hit on my suitcase. The dog goes crazy. And he goes, "There was something in here." I go, "Woulda, coulda, shoulda." And they have no sense of humor because they do arrest a mule 10 feet from us that has nothing to do with us. And I go, "Well, you got our guy. We should go." Nothing. And I might add, it's Malibu Sheriff's DEA in a helicopter. So we're causing a stir, so they want to move us. And I say to the cop as he's driving to where they're moving us, "If I had a bag of pot down my pants and you didn't find it till later, it's the same fine, correct?" He went, "Yeah." And I go, "Don't look down my pants." And they just think we're funny. Anyway, we wind up signing autographs, missing our plane. We went the next morning. We went back to Sam's, and we realized when we'd stand down on his cliff, there was a balcony. We had been watching a helicopter for 2 weeks. And we're going, "That's too far to be us." But it was. And he said, "Boy, I wish we had some of that good pot." And I reached in my pants, and he went crazy. He's terrified of police and being arrested. So now we get to that arena, and I have a gun, pot, jewelry, and we each have an off-duty cop on the door. And I say to the cop, "Hold my bag." And just before that, Sam said, "Let me put my blow in there." So after the show, Sam says, "Where's my blow?" I go, "Hang on a minute, officer." And he comes in, and Sam goes ballistic when he leaves. "Why would you do that?" I go, "It's an illegal search and seizure. Even if he looked, he can't do anything." He goes, "Why do you know all this?" I just knew bizarre shit. No category on Jeopardy, just bizarre shit. And wherever we went on that first tour, every strip club would close if it was 9 o'clock at night and just dance to Wild Thing for free. Everything was free. Jackets are free. And when the song came out, they would follow us like rock stars in cars from state to state. So let me tell you something. It's not like we're the best looking guys in the world, but you wouldn't know that. There was women everywhere. At the Dunes at one point, I had to get 2 rooms because they'd find a way to get into my room. So I'd have another room under a different name. And anything you can imagine is what went on.
Well, yeah, okay. So you're living this decadent lifestyle. You are rock stars. I mean, I remember when the video came out, and was it Jessica Hahn was dancing in it?
Well, here's how that happens. There's a director that I knew from 100 years ago. He directed the early stand-up shows for HBO at the Comedy Store. And when we get there, it's all about religion. You know, some people just don't pay attention to their careers and assume it's being done. And I said, "He's not going to go for this." And he came in and went, "I'm not doing this shit." And there happened to be a boxing ring there. And he was managed by a rock agency. So we called and said, "Get everybody." There was like 19 of them, 17 of them. And he had an on and off again affair with Jessica Hahn. So he got her to be Wild Thing. And then Rodney and Bon Jovi did the opening. And the rest was history. That song. Listen, we're in Texas in a strip club, and they're all dancing for Billy Idol at the other end. And Sam taps me on the shoulder and goes, "I think we need a song." I wish I could say that it was more artistic and creative than that. And then Leslie West from Mountain went, "Do Wild Thing." And now in that, I played with a guy I grew up idolizing, Ginger Baker. Leslie toured with us, a great guitar player that was with Madonna and Jennifer Lopez. He's with Hall now from Hall & Oates. The first time it was Paul Kantner, Grace Slick, and the guy who sang "I Love You, Jeopardy." They were at our show.
Greg Kim.
Yeah. And then when we became the band afterwards, they couldn't believe it. And I remember about 3 months later, I'm in a recording studio and the lights go on, and Grace Slick turns to Paul and goes, "There's that comedy drummer." So it stuck with them. And here, I'll just keep talking. Sam's making 10 grand a night. He wants to do the Outlaws. He's managed by a guy at APA. And Sam would always make me the bad guy. I know business. I'm doing it forever. So we go in and the guy says, Sam gets 10. I go, a friend of mine in Fremont is offering 25,000. Well, if he does that, Bill Graham won't want him in San Francisco. I go, well, what's Bill Graham offering? He doesn't even know who the fuck you people are. I go, exactly. Sam, let's get the fuck out of here. And we did the 25,000 one. And a month later, Bill Graham calls, Bill Graham. And I don't know how many thousands, maybe 10,000 in an outdoor venue for 100,000. Shows you what agents know. But here's what happens when you have a mouth. I don't know, 10 years go by. And I'm at the Paul Masson Winery. I'm the permanent comic one season. Tony Bennett, Boz Skaggs, different ones. And I'm going, and I can't believe I'm opening for Harry Belafonte. And I get a call. There's a problem. The agent that handles Belafonte says you're a filthy asshole. I go, what's his name? It's the guy I said, fuck you to. And he's telling this to the star. And unbelievable. I can't tell you what an honor it was and what a great human being and man he was. He said to the agent, well, I'll decide that. Now, at that time, I'm wearing a bell sleeve shirt, a vest, baggy pants, and red high top shoes. I walk in, and he looks at me, he goes, is that on purpose? I don't know, this is how I dress. He goes, so does the whole band. I come off, and he goes, geez, thank you. And I go up, and it's stadium seating, and I'm at the very top with a girlfriend and a guy named Bob Moore and his girlfriend. And all of a sudden, Bob goes, he's talking about you. I went, what? I've never been fired from the stage. And Belafonte goes, wherever I go from now on, he goes.
So how long did you tour? How long did you tour with him?
Shows you what agents know. I only did a couple more with him because, you know, he might have been 70 then. And he does a long show. Those shows are brutal. Smokey would do like almost 2 hours, Smokey Robinson. And one night there, it's stadium seating. I'm on stage and I see a guy and a girl walking to get a seat. His pocket looks like he's something really stuffed in there. And I go, that's not a ring. You're not going to propose, are you? And he goes, yeah. Now I'm stuck. I've ruined it. So I go, well, you might as well come up here. And the place goes nuts. I make him get on his knee. It's beautiful. He sits down and I go, you know what? I'm going to say something to Smokey, and I think he's going to do something very special for you. And the whole place goes crazy. Every night, Smokey would pick a couple and do something very special. This night, he didn't have to pick. I picked for him. And he went, thanks for the setup.
Now, earlier, you said you were with Sam for 6 years until he started going crazy. So
what happened is the Outlaws, these theaters wanted the Outlaws. So he thought Sam's brother should book it. And after 6 months, I go, what happened? He goes, Sam will never let you guys be bigger than him or work. I went, well, then fuck you. Bye-bye.
So then what do you do now? You're used to the big crowds. How do you recharge your career? How did you, because I know you started writing. How was your path to writing?
Well, from there, I went and wrote a pilot that became Arliss. And I did that for 7 years. And at the same time, at some point, my friend is getting a divorce. We hadn't talked in 5 years because I didn't like Tom Arnold and vice versa. And it was a long story, but I start working for her. You know, she doesn't know I can write. I'm just writing jokes for her, and it's stupid money. And then she asked me to be her assistant. I said no, and the husband said, please. And they give me more stupid money, which I wasn't making on the road. And one day I said, you know, this script needs help. And I'm pointing it out. She goes, wait, you can really write? I went, yeah. She goes, you're on the show. You'll not thank me for it. Trust me. And yeah, I went on the show, and I think within a year and a half was running it. But they were so mean to her; it was terrible.
Well, so wait, what was it like working with Roseanne though on the show? Were the stories? Was she as crazy on the set as they said her? I mean, because you always read different stuff. Or what was the whole dynamic?
Listen, here's what they did. It's them against her. It's a long story, but here's one.
Tell me.
For every joke you write, there's 20, and the powers that be pick the funny one. These stupid college fucks. And they make you divide into rooms. Well, I made myself my own room, wrote one joke, and I'd come in and they'd laugh, and they go, what else you got? I go, what else do you need? You laughed. So one day I'm there now, the second year, and I say to my assistant, where do all those jokes go? And she hands me something I can't even lift. I had to take it down to the stage in a wheelbarrow. And I said to Roseanne, she goes, what is this? And I go, you tell me. And she starts flipping, and it's those other jokes. Because what she would do is think all they gave her is one. She'd walk off stage and go home. They go, oh, she's a problem. It's them. From that point on, she never walked off stage. She never had a problem with me. In fact, I couldn't find her, and she saw me in a panic and came over and said, I'll never do anything to you. But it was because I protected her. It was them against her. They didn't want to hear from her. I go, she's a comic. And it all started in the first 13. The guy who created the show says to her, Roseanne wouldn't say that. And she goes, I am Roseanne. And there's where the problem started. And she said, if I'm number one, you're fired. 13 shows later, she's number one and fired him. And every year she had a different head writer. So unofficially, I did it for 2 years with stupid titles. And then I think the last 8 months was me, officially. But everybody was against her. The new censor lady calls me up. And I said, what are your notes? She goes, oh, I was told Roseanne will just throw them away. I go, Roseanne's never even seen your notes. What? Hey, listen, there's a new fish in town. You send them to me. This is Monday. By Thursday, in the natural progression of things, they automatically came out. So I said to her, thanks for your notes. We addressed them. This goes on. Now she has to say to ABC, they're great. So I'm trying to turn everything around. But a lot of it, once the media gets a hold of stuff, I was with her one time in New Orleans, and I think one of the trash rags front stories was she's leaving her husband for a fat, funny guy, which was me. Yeah, fat, balding, funny guy. Yeah, I know.
I want to go back to Arliss because I love that show, and I've interviewed Robert, and I've interviewed Michael Boatman, and I've interviewed Jim Turner. I've interviewed a bunch of the guys, all a great cast, and that was a great show. Now you co-wrote the pilot. Did you do it with Robert?
No, how did that come happened about? Is HBO ordered 5 episodes or 6, and they were unhappy with 5. And I did a roast with Robert where they were making, what's his name? It'll come to me. They're making him Man of the Year, Bob Costas. Brene Brith. I guess they were out of Jews. It's in St. Louis. Long story short, I write what Robert does for 27 years at that point. And he kills. And it's an all Marty Allan, Steve routine that I reworked with my grandfather who spoke Yiddish. And basically he says to the rabbi, do you mind if I make him an honorary Jew? And the rabbi, of course, everybody plays along. Sure. And Bob stands up and he goes, repeat after me. And he does it. And he goes, Bob, you need some phlegm. You're never going to get this right. And there's a few little things like that. And then he's done. And Bob goes, what did I just say? He goes, you just donated $200,000 to B'nai B'rith. Sit down, Jew boy. It made the papers. And afterwards, Costas said, if I get the Letterman show, you're my head writer. And we're sitting there and he goes, Robert, you had just one Jew? I had Belzer. I had Richard Lewis. He named 5 Jews. He said, I didn't come close to that. He goes, I only need Allan. Because I just have a history of that kind of stuff. Who would know it? The Steve Allen, Marty Allen routine is they're interviewing a Japanese ball player who lives in a cave. But the last thing they say is, what did I say? And he says to them, oh, you just donated 200. So I reworked it.
But so how did Arliss come about though?
Well, we're flying home. And I say, geez, I'd like to write one. And if you know Robert, he's not very complimentary. I said, I can't be worse than them. He goes, yes, you can. And I tell him my idea, which is he's being made Man of the Year and trying to fix a football game at the same time. And I went to Alaska and wrote it. And when I write something, you can always tell when it's me. It's not. It's a little off. That's the best I could say it. And I never heard anything. And finally, I went to a producer and I go, what's going on? He goes, Robert didn't tell you? They'd like you to look at the others. Then Robert called me and said, it was my idea. Do you mind taking your name off of it? And I'll make sure you're the highest paid. And I made a stupid move and believed him. And he rewrote half of it so he could get his name on it, and it became his pilot. But I did the pilot that they bought. And then I stayed there for 7 years, and at 2 years in, I went to Roseanne, and I did both shows at the same time. I would rewrite with him because he was film. We were tape. I'd work 16, 18 hours Friday, go to his place Saturday and Sunday and rewrite sometimes page one. Some of the writers at Arliss hated us because it was from page one. And a lot of times I upset people because I'm quick and they think it's not hard for me. So they think I disrespect everything. And I'm just quick. Like one day he comes in and he goes, they're throwing around ideas. I'm just sitting there quiet. He goes, what's the matter? I go, same shit we always hear. He goes, what are you thinking about? And I go, that movie we watched the other day with Jimmy Stewart, a ball player who lost his leg? Because, yeah, and I go, what if that's your favorite player growing up and his leg goes up for auction and you buy it? And they proceed to beat me for an hour and a half of how stupid I am. I said, don't worry about it. A month later, the leg in real life goes up for sale. Then I said, let's do naming rights. That's never going to happen. Because I try to think outside the box. Because I'll be in a room and like a friend of mine was in college and they said, write a PSA. I said, what are you doing? He said, guns. I go, yeah, you and everybody in the class. Think outside the box. That's what writing is. Because it's all been done. What are you going to do that makes what everybody's seen already look fresh and new? And that's what it comes down to. So every now and then she'd say, I have an idea for a show, or she would have to approve the ideas. We'd, get a few together and then we'd write them. I had no problem. I understand they lived a hell, but they did it to her. And that's, if you know Roseanne, that was her way of lashing out, not knowing how to deal with it.
Now, tell me about assume the position, because you're involved with that too. And that was another thing.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, because Robert and I haven't talked in years. He doesn't like me. After Arliss, we do a movie based on frat house somewhere in Pennsylvania, and they figured out how to beat the OTB. And they were money hand over fist until they got greedy. In fact, in the courtroom, the judge said, I don't even know what you did. You'll have to explain it to me. And we're writing that, and all of a sudden he decides the guy has dogs and raises dogs. And what the fuck? And he respects nothing from anybody, unless it's funny from me. So now, after HBO won't do that movie, he likes history. We already did sports. I got to keep him interested. I can't say to him, hey, you want to be a mailman? So I said, let's do a history show. And he goes to Paris. And while he's gone, I get an idea. And I look up, where did the finger come from? Where did the word fuck come from? Where did the word shit come from? And I write this all up and put it on his desk. Eat a tomato, you would die, all this stuff. And prior to that, he says, well, I'm just going to send him the show I did for ABC. I go, 25 years ago that failed? He goes, what do you know? Next day, his manager says the same thing. So now we put together this history show, and I understand it and it's very clever. Norman Lear wants to take it to Broadway, but Robert thinks he's bigger than that. Long story short, the president of HBO or CEO, whatever it was, says, I don't get it. Make a 10-minute presentation. Robert made it the full half hour and never paid me what I should be paid. I promise you on the second one. So we wanted an order of 10. And Chris goes, I'll give you 6. We actually celebrate, go to a dinner. The next day, Robert says, not good enough. If he would have taken it, he might have lasted longer. Instead, they go, well, see if he can do it one more time. And I had an idea what it should be. And Robert's paranoid about pot. And I said hemp. And we got into a fight. And the next day he comes in and says, a lawyer last night told me I was right. And I go, well, what day does he start writing the fucking show? Now we're in his office and he's sitting behind his computer. I'm not even going to tell you what he's been doing for weeks. And he says, maybe it's time for you to move on. Now, I have covered his tracks for 27 years because he's not really good to people, especially women. And he goes to get up, and I go, don't get up, Robert. He said, why? I said, it's not a good idea. And I proceeded to scream like a madman. And then I left, and I passed by a guy that worked for us, and I winked. I'm not mad. I just went out. He beat me for the money again. I made him pay me up front so I can get my health insurance. He lied. And about a month later, I get a letter, an email, and Patty Ross, if you know her, is staying with me, and she's sitting on the couch. And I go, oh, an email from Robert. Dear Allan, in light of what happened, you ought to come back, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes, but I'm the boss. And I just delete it. She goes, don't you want to read the whole thing? I go, I was done with Dear Allan 27 years, and he spelled Allan wrong. And I haven't talked to him since. Now, believe it or not, the first assumed the position gets nominated. Why? We're setting up to do the second one. And Robert's the host. So I go there, and his wife is begging me to go backstage and help him. It's over. I'm done. As soon as we lose this award to Gary Sinise, I'm leaving. And they even got rid of the category. It was like Gary Sinise, Jews in a prison camp, and assume the position.
So, you've been at this for a long time. What keeps you in the game? I mean, is it something? Are you still writing? I mean, I know you're still performing, but it's it's one of the point where you probably have a SAG pension. You probably
yes, I have written an after and WG pension, no SAG. I didn't do enough. My mistake. I do pilots that never get picked up. I usually do one a year. I was at Disney for a while doing shows, pilots for them. Then I went back out on the road, wasn't comfortable.
What do you mean? Why weren't you comfortable? Was it just because you were away from the game too long?
I didn't remember what I did. I was slow. The mind wasn't working the same way. For me, it's two different sides of the brain. Like if I write all day, I can't do comedy, and vice versa. And my wife at the time, Sabrina, would beg me to go back to it. And finally I did. And it was at the Laugh Factory. And what's his name? Lovely man. He did very good, but he didn't think he did. Huh?
Jamie Masada?
No, the guy who shot himself. Popular comic. Anyway, he came up. Who?
Drake Sather?
No, he was out there, did a lot of specials. It'll come to me. And he comes up to me, he goes, are you back? I went, yeah, why? He goes, how many times have you been on? I go, twice. And that's what you can do? I go, I thought I sucked. He goes, Jesus Christ. And as he walks away, Sabrina goes, he's going to kill himself. And 2 nights later, he did. It's a rough business. He wanted to be a star. He had a lot, $1 million house, money in the bank, but it wasn't enough. So I do pilots. I perform. And most of the time I do nothing. And then somebody else will say, hey, want to do a pilot? Like I just finished one with Roseanne, the script. We're waiting. Somebody said they were interested. So we're waiting to see where that goes so I can bring her back to television.
Now with comedy, now that you're doing comedy again, like I do shows again now, and I'm lucky that I get a crowd that's, usually over 40, Jewish, Italian, Philadelphia, New Jersey, crowds that aren't going to be bitching about everything. They don't get offended. But for you,
you're in Jersey. Here in Vegas, there's a small community of, I don't know how many hundreds of comics that think they're headliners. And some of the clubs let them believe that. And they're nice people, not knocking them. But the first time I went into Wise Guys, they don't know who I am. And I say to the girl, I'm Paulie's uncle. He said I could go on because Paulie has a piece of the place. Tell the MC. Walk over to the MC. He goes, anything you want me to say? I go, oh, Saturday Night Live, executive producer Roseanne, Arliss. And he goes, oh, right. I'm putting on somebody I know first, which was Joe Camparillo. And I said, fine. I come off stage. I couldn't get rid of this guy. And every young comic gathered around me outside. They don't get this kind of comedy. We were raised very tough times at the store. There was a system. And even if there wasn't, try following 10 or 12 big celebrities, not 10 or 12 shit comics. And you will learn to stand on your own 2 feet or quit. And at one point, Mitzi used to go get Allan. You know, the lineup would, if celebrities show up, it would knock a nobody comic out, including me. And sometimes they would just go home and be angry. And she'd go, get Allan. He knows the trick. And the trick is you got to let them think you're just as big. And I learned it one night. I followed Pryor. What, are you kidding me? And I just watched him and applauded like everybody else. And then I went, you still in the room, Rich? He went, yeah. I go, bring the car around. Place lost it. He went right down and I continued with my act. So there's tricks. And it's all confidence. But here they got 10 minutes and think they're headliners. And it's, maybe 2 jokes each one has. It's sad, and what the clubs do here, like Jimmy Kimmel, not so much the seller, wise guys in one of their operations, they use only those guys. So they don't pay them. And these guys think they're in show business. It's sad. It's sad.
Well, I got to ask you, looking
I
back.
I do Jimmy Kimmel sometimes with Vicky Barbalak.
Okay, Vicky's funny. Looking back at your career, when you look back, and you've had a very long career, what are some things you're proud of? Like when you look back and you go, what are you proud of from your career? Because you've written for TV, you've played venues that people would only get a chance to look at. But what makes you proud about your career?
Nobody's ever asked me that. I don't get the whole thing myself. I thought it was nice to win the Humanitas or be nominated for Humanitas. I thought it was nice to be nominated for a Writers Guild thing. But as far as I was impressed about maybe meeting some presidents. I'm a schmuck from New Jersey. I'm hanging out with Clinton. What? You know what I mean? The whole thing has been interesting because if you break it up, it's like 7 lives already. It was the amateur new guy, then it became the headliner guy, then it became the outlaw guy, then it became a writer, then it became the TV producer. And they're all like different people to me.
So what's in your future, Allan? What are you going to keep writing? Are you going to keep doing more stand-up? I mean,
I think if it's in your blood, you just do it until you drop dead. Dick Shawn was on stage. I hope I'm not on stage, but even if I had no agents and it stopped, I'd still write when I have ideas. And this particular idea I'm doing with Roseanne, we had 10 years ago, and I thought it was great. And she called me up about 3 months ago and said, here's what I'd like to do. Let me think. And I ripped apart that script and redid it with her. And then I did a final pass. And it's very hard to please anybody in show business. She'll always have something to say. Somebody will. And all I got back was brilliant. First time she's ever done that. My ex-wife read it and went, Allan, I was crying. So, but it takes somebody to pull the trigger. And I have a couple of people in interest. And what I'd like to do is that for at least 3 to 5 years. And then in between, do little movies. Like we have a little horror movie, which is 3 parts, where she's a killer. And you think she's dead at the end, and of course she's not, so we can bring her back. And, we can shoot something like that in 6 weeks, still have the rest of the time off, because this next show is film, not regular TV, not 3 camera. I don't trust them anymore. And with film, you can do a lot more crazy stuff and a lot with the language. Yeah. There's no way out of this. You know that.
You're stuck and I'm stuck. Anyway, I want to thank you for coming on. Now you have a website.
Well, it's kind of almost up. AllanStephan.com.
And are you on any other social media? You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And, Sabrina still helps me with everything. It's my best friend. Is one of my best friends is the ex-wife. Go figure. And I like her husband. And so I think she has Instagram. I may be on TikTok.
All right. Well, do you have any shows coming up?
Actually, I'll be with
Stand
Vicky the 29th of October at Jimmy Kimmel's. And then I hope to be in an office going, thank you for picking up the show.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you, Allan. People, go look up Allan. Go to his website. Find some clips on YouTube. Very funny guy. Go look at some of those old Kinnison videos. He's like wearing the shirt with the chest hair and the long hair. It was like
and all the jewelry, all that jewelry.
They were rock stars. You guys are rock stars. So people
and I had hair. Real quickly, Sabrina brings me up on stage. She goes, when I first met this next act, I was 15. We went to the Lost Boys, and Sam Kennison was my brother-in-law, and he had no room for me in the car. So he said, I'll get Allan to take you home. And I was terrified of this guy. He never talked. He just seemed dark to me, a lot of chains, and he drives a big Lincoln like he's a gangster. And she said, after 15 minutes, he turned to me and went, kid, you smoke pot? She said, well, I said, I don't want to be the one that turns you out. And she goes, and that's how I met this next act who actually became my husband.
Well, there you go. So people, check out Allan. Don't forget to check out Comedy Trainwreck. Go like all their shows. Ed McGonigal's show's great. Coleman Green's got a great show on. Follow them. Follow me. I'm on Twitter at Cooper Talk. You can go to my other website, coopertalk.net, where it's my other show. You can find over 1,000 episodes on there. So I want to thank you all for watching. And keep watching every week. We're going to have some great people. And people, give it up for Allan Stephan. And I thank you, Allan.
Thank you so much. I wish it was all good.
Thank you, brother.
Coop's Comedy Corner.